I'm calling this February 1st, 2018 board meeting for Benicia Unified School District is now open.
So from closed session, in the matter of student number 18-004, the recommendation of the committee is stipulated expulsion. Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation? Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I please have everybody join me and stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, fine. All right, can I get an approval of the agenda as it is written, please? As it's presented?
A motion to approve the agenda as presented. I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? Okay, Dr. Young, we're going to start with our highlight this evening from the Benicia Ed Foundation.
Thank you very much. So I'd just like to welcome everybody who's continued to stay with us this evening, and welcome trustees, and welcome members of the BEF. It's been my pleasure and honor to work with the BEF over these last 2.5 years, and it's a group of energized, committed, brilliant people who really care about this school district and have done great work for us. And so we wanted to take an opportunity tonight to give you a chance to come up and tell us about the work that you're doing, and we're anxious to hear about it. So, Neely Silberman, come on forward. Welcome.
All right. Good evening. Thank you. For those here tonight, and for those who might be watching who don't know me, I'm Neely Silberman, and I'm the president of the Benicia Education Foundation this year. I have 2 children in the district. I have a freshman and a junior. I'm also the vice president of the Benicia High School PTA, and I've spent the last many years working really hard with other like-minded parents on parent groups to make our district something for which we can all be proud, and I think we are proud. So I wanted to thank you, school board, for the opportunity to share a little bit about our foundation. And so tonight, just really briefly, I'd like to talk to you about who is on our board, who's comprised of the board, what programs we're supporting this year, and also how we're working to accomplish the 2 goals that we set forth at the beginning of the year. So who are we and what are we supporting? I am so excited about our board this year. We have 23 people on our board who represent a variety of stakeholders in the community. We have a businessman, a business owner in town who has no children in the district. We have a past superintendent. We have a Rotary Club member. We have parents, both moms and dads, who are representing every single school site in our district. We have every age group child that attends school represented from kindergarten through high school. We have a teacher, and we have an inclusion specialist too. And everyone on our board is super committed to working hard to provide quality enrichment and academic programs that wouldn't otherwise be provided by the district. So we are super excited. So what do we support? This year we have $100,000 allocated to our schools. And in the elementary schools specifically, the most exciting thing that we have to offer is our STEAM Wheel Enrichment Elective Program. That's a $50,000 program that benefits the 3rd through 5th graders, all of them in our district. And that's a program we'd love to see grow into what I'm affectionately calling the training wheel program. So that would be for the kindergarten through the 2nd graders, and we hope to accomplish that soon. At the middle and high schools, we are currently providing $20,000 to provide programs for college and career pathways. We're providing $15,000 to fund and support teaching and computers, and so that teachers can have the opportunities to do great things. And also, for the first time, we are pleased to pay for every single 10th grader at the high school to take the PSAT, a fund of $6,000. So as a board, we are supporting the programs that were set forth by last year's board, but we're also trying to accomplish the 2 driving goals that we set forth this year. The first goal is visibility. It became clear almost immediately that within our community and even the families in our own districts, that very few people knew exactly what we do with the foundation. So the first goal we created was around increasing our visibility and educating our families and the community about what we do. So we've worked really hard the last 5 months. I have a really amazing board, and we've done a lot of things. We've had representation at every single back-to-school event at every single school site. We've personally connected and met with every principal and administrator and many teachers within the district, and we've met with every PTA and parent group leadership team, and we've begun the conversation about how can we better facilitate and collaborate between and among our groups to do bigger things. Bigger things are possible. We've been in almost every school newsletter every month, and we've increased our social media presence. We now have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We've donated baskets with race registrations for every school auction that we've heard of. In that way, the school benefits financially from the donation, and we benefit from the exposure. We also have 2 board members, Natalie and Joe Farrell, who are out at the state park now every Saturday at 8 a.m. Helping people get ready for the big race that's to come, and that's welcome. Everybody is welcome to attend. That helps us not only promote our upcoming race, but again, places us in the community's field of vision. In fact, while you're out and about, and if you're out walking, you might be stopped by Sarah Randolph, our new race director, who is literally telling people about our upcoming race as she runs by during her very long Ironman training runs. She is seriously a rock star. We've also begun the process to replace outdated and faded BEF signage. We know the new signs will bring important visibility to our foundation. So we've done a lot in 5 months to get people to notice us, and it is working, I can tell. But increasing our visibility is not enough. We, as a foundation, are also working to sustain and then grow our fundraising efforts. So goal number 2 is surrounded and directs towards fundraising. When I began in September, one of the things I also noticed immediately is that our foundation's ability to raise money and support our programs has met with several serious obstacles. For one, our foundation isn't eligible for a lot of grants because our district doesn't meet their poverty thresholds, and direct donations are down over the last 2 years are down over 88%. 88% over the last 2 years. With online registration, we lost the ability to directly connect with parents as they attend back-to-school events. And while the ability to register online is so valuable, and I think most parents and people would agree that's a path we should continue to pursue, we need to consider how the funding organizations in our town are affected. That's the bottom line there. It also became clear that the parent groups in town at the individual school sites have significantly increased their fundraising efforts, and they have rallied parents to give to their schools very directly. They have been so effective and creative. You saw some of the lip syncers here. They were doing a cute little fundraiser tonight where the teachers were lip syncing away and people were voting and giving money. They've been so effective, which is so great for the school sites, not so much for our foundations and the programs that we hope to build and support. But great challenges can lead to great solution when they are addressed head on. So to continue offering the programs I already mentioned tonight and to offer additional programs, we need to increase our race participation and our community sponsorship by 25%. A successful BEF run, which is currently our sole fundraiser and which is a great community building event, will allow us to continue offering programs like the STEAM, thank you, wheel electives, thank you, that's a lot of words to say, at the elementary school and college and career opportunities at Benicia Middle School and High School, and also to support our wonderful teachers and what they do and in their innovative efforts. The race is April 22nd this year, and we need everyone to sign up and participate. Our new race director, Sarah Randolph, is going to be creating a free 5K training program that will begin on Wednesdays in March. And that's open for anybody who is interested in attending. We will be reaching out to principals and parent group leaders to help us recruit as we build momentum, and we will also be reaching out to the community members and local business owners who most directly benefit from our children and our families to help us grow our sponsorship program. In a nutshell, that's who we are, that's what we're doing, and that's what we hope to do. We wouldn't all be here today if we didn't believe that big things are possible. And if we weren't truly passionate about creating positive educational and enrichment opportunities for the children in our district. Quality education results in a quality community. And I know we can bring the community together and raise important funds for future foundation programs. Together, we really are making a difference for the children in BUSD. Thank you.
You know, I just like to add, normally we would do it in our board highlights, but I actually did visit some STEAM classes this week as their wheel was going on. And to see excitement is not giving it enough credit. Those children are so engaged and they were so excited and they're working there like, I can figure this. I know this. No, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Because they were doing it in a partnership, the first grade with their fifth grade over at Matthew Turner. So it was just so great to see. It's such a valuable gift that you're giving to our district, and I really want to tell you how much we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Alex Torres. I'm the ASB president at Benicia High School, and I'll be talking about the past events. So we had a girls' senior night last Friday, and they won against Vanden High School. I did not attend the game. I was at the talent show, which is the next event that happened on Friday and Saturday. The talent show is one of the best talent shows we've had in a while. We had lots of talent this year. The lighting was pretty good, and what I mean by that is Anders Knudstad and his group, their music and the lighting set the tone of what their band was playing, and it was just really cool, along with other acts, of course. And the winners, so in first place we had Vivian and Kyle Kringle with their teleportation magic act. It was pretty cool. I don't know how they did it. And then second place, we had Gabby Campitelli, La Paula Parker, and Dahlia and Amira El Ghanemi. They sang Toxic together. It was pretty amazing. Then Gabby Campitelli again came in third place, singing Black Horse and Cherry Tree with this like looping pedal. It's pretty cool. Our BHS and BMS band had a crab feed this past Saturday, and I heard it was a pretty good turnout, and a lot of people were there because who doesn't like crab? I know I like crab cakes, but last night was our senior night for our wrestling team, and they beat Vanden High School, and with that they also beat they won in the Sacramento championship. Then today is the first day of our Black History Month, and BHS had a performance during access period from So Voso, a group from Oakland with music, history, and audience participation.
All right. Hello, my name is Christian Chavez, and I am the ASB Vice President at Benicia High School, and I will be talking about our upcoming events. So this weekend on Saturday, our award-winning band will be leaving for their New Orleans Spring Music Exchange trip, where they will be performing in 2 parades and exchanging performances with other bands at the Martin Luther King Jr. Charter School, and they'll be performing and doing workshops at Tulane University out there. So that should be a lot of fun for them. And then this Monday on February 5th will be the start of all of our spring sports. So that's going to be an exciting time. And on Monday, the high school will be celebrating our 100th day of school, and we'll be playing like elementary school games such as like Foursquare, hoops, state games, and like friendship bracelets and stuff like that. And along with that, we will be taking donations for Ryan Joseph, who became paralyzed after a wrestling match at College Park. And then next Thursday will be our annual open house event, and that'll include our elective fair, 8th grade parent night, AP information night, and all of our parents will be invited to learn about the courses and our high school as a whole. So it should be a good event.
Good job, guys. I have a question for you. Did you go to elementary school with us in Benicia? Yeah.
Christian did. Yeah. I'm from Atlanta.
Right. Okay. So yeah, 100 days at the elementary school is a big deal. So I'm just thinking, like, you never forget, right? So even in high school, you got to continue to celebrate. So good job, guys. So just a couple of things maybe a few things from me. We have 2 professional development days during the course of the year. One of them is at the beginning of the year, and then one of them is coming up on the 13th of February. And I would just like to point out that the planning of it, I think we've gone about it a little bit differently this year, and we're proud of that. Dr. Beetson working with the District Curriculum Council and the PAR group, which is peer assistance and review, and then Stephanie Rice, who works in the curriculum department. They've partnered together to plan that day on the 13th. So we're looking forward to that. Have many sessions that will take place in the morning and the afternoon. So we're looking forward to that. Just an update: the TK and kindergarten enrollment started today at the elementary schools. All right, and a quick solar update. I talked about that a little bit last time. We're excited about the solar project. It's just about finished, and the schools are starting to come online. So one of the pieces in this I think is amazing. If you look at the high school, once it's all done and it's online, the high school solar project will provide 100% of the energy costs for the high school, 100% for farmer, and if there's anything left over, that will go towards the middle school. And the other elementary schools that have the solar panels, it will be 100% of their energy costs. And part of this is when you complete the project, you have to work with PG&E and get that hooked up. And we have one that's online right now, and it's Semple. So Semple is officially off the grid. So we're excited about that. BHS High School, our high school, is preparing for their band trip to New Orleans. They're excited about that for the 3rd through the 8th. And the last item I'd like to point out, I think, Lynn, I think it was last week or the week before, there was a celebration and an opening. I don't know if it's a celebration, but it was an opening at the Kyle Highland Teen Center. And they found a new place, and they reopened it. And it's really a beautiful place. And it was very powerful to be there. And then that effort continues. And they have a really wonderful house that's next to a church, and it's a great place for kids to come after school. And I think on the weekends and right, and sometimes you need more volunteers. And it's each room is very well outfitted and separate for the kids to come and have a place. So very proud of the community that they were able to put that together.
Thank you. I think also they explained to us, and Mr. Wing was the one clarifying for us. The Kyle Center is on a grant right now. But the cost of that home every month for them in order to operate is going to be pretty expensive. Is that not correct?
Yes, it's about $2,500 plus utilities a month, and they do get some money right now from the Human Resources Committee or Board, Human Services Board here in Benicia. Through the city, but how long is that going to last? And there's still other expenses on top of that. So yeah. So if people like to donate outside of donating to BEF, after donating to BEF, yes.
Okay, nicely done. Following your donation to BEF.
I got to realize who I'm sitting next to.
I didn't even kick him.
Okay. Is there anyone on the board who has a report for today?
We're going to talk about the same thing, maybe. Sure. So the crab feed was really fun. It's the very first time I've been to a crab feed, and I've never seen the clock tower so full of people. I didn't know it was like legal to have that many people in there, but it must have been, obviously, if we did it. But it was great. It was amazing. I thought it was really well put together, really well run, really organized, and the bands were, of course, just amazing. And Gary ate all my crab. And then I also went to I was also at the middle school on Friday where they had their band showcase at the middle school, which was really great. I think Mr. Ferrer has done a great job of filling really hard shoes to fill, and there was a huge improvement in terms of the band's performance from the previous concert that they had and the current one. So it was nice.
I'll just echo what she said, and it's same as it's been the last few years. If you don't look at who's playing, you're not going to know who is. The music is at good quality from both schools. If you just listen to the music and the instruments and the solos and everything, and then when you turn to see if it's someone from the right-hand side or left-hand side, that's when you know
what band is playing. So, and just echo what she said, it was an outstanding night. They sold out.
All right, well, I'm just going to add one more thing because I already talked about the wheel to everybody. I did get to go to Benicia Middle School and be a participant as I guess a scorer in an activity for their position papers. Mr. Young was the teacher who did not have his class ready when we were available for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. I just know they weren't in the process in December when we did it. So I got to come back this past week, and I love doing it, and it's a lot of fun, and it just brings back a lot of wonderful memories because I taught the 8th grade English and history class, so I kind of love sitting there, and we were probably close to the end again because I have a habit of talking off topic, so there you go. But anyways, I thank them for the invite again. I really enjoy it, so I'm looking forward to next year being able to do it. For all of us, also the Ledge Action Day for California School Board is March 13th. I will be participating. The focus of the event is obviously going to be fair funding for schools, which we have been talking about. We'll be meeting with legislatures throughout the day. So if anybody wants to go, my car is going to Sacramento that morning. Celeste came with me last year, but if anybody else wants to go, let me know. March 13th. So I'll look forward to talking with you up there. With that said, I'm going to say, gentlemen, you are free to leave, and I want to thank you for doing a great job tonight. So, and if you need any elementary kids to help you with your 100-day activities, let us know. I think we could find a few elementary schools for you. Have a good time.
I do have one question, and maybe Betty knows. Where's our Liberty students? Are they... Sorry about that. But...
No, I think
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving into our comments from members of the public. So members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdictions. Cards may be completed requesting to address the board and are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. And I have 3 blue cards. So, Macy Bayer.
Mary Bayer.
Mary Bayer. Sorry, I keep doing that to Mary all the time. And then Barbara Jones and Carolyn Fields.
Okay.
Yes, Mary, sorry.
My name is Mary Bayer, and this will be my 14th year in the school district because my last child is graduating. She's a senior. I am so excited. I'm sorry that a lot of the teachers left because I wanted them to hear this because this is my last chance to thank them for all that they have done for my children. They were there teaching tirelessly through the hard times. We were there in the 2000s when there was no money, and every event we went to was for a fundraiser. I know this is like the Oscars. I will forget all the people I want to thank, but this is my children. She really wanted to thank Ms. Crozier for making her a published author as a 2nd grader. She wanted to thank the 5th grade teachers for finding Westminster Woods so she didn't have to make butter. She wanted to thank Mr. Jones' history because they were studying the Oregon Trail, and she was so excited about the wagon groups and traveling along the trail, and he had them do journals every day. And since that time, she has a journal throughout her high school year. So she has like a whole roll of journals in her room that she's kept about her life as a high schooler. Miss Casey, because that was her most challenging math class, and she encouraged them to push themselves and believe that they can do more than expected of a 7th grader. Miss Gaines, Her teaching is all encapsulating as English has to be. She teaches world news, history, critical thinking, on top of analytical writing and persuasive speech. She is basically the reason why she got a perfect score on her ACT reading and writing section and a 790 on her SAT. Mr. Kaiser, he helped her decide her career path. He's the new computer science teacher you have at the high school. He has devoted to teaching so much that he cares so much about his students and is entirely overqualified to be teaching high school class. This is a man who built a solar power vehicle. My daughter, who will be graduating in June, is one of the 16,000 National Merit semifinalists. Out of the 3.6 million seniors, she's also one of the 4,500 invited to participate in the 2018 U.S. Presidential Scholar, and they only choose 161. So I'm like, the odds are not that good. And she is all of this because of all the teachers in Benicia. We have never paid for any supplemental teaching. We didn't send her to Kumon. We didn't send her to all the learning centers that they have in San Ramon and Dublin and Concord, all those places. Everything she is because of the Benicia teachers. And I know my family and I cannot thank them enough, like Ms. Fields, cannot thank them enough, but the district can by giving them a really good raise and benefit.
Barbara Jones.
Good evening, President and trustees. I'm Barbara Jones, first grade teacher at Joe Henderson. I'm actually here speaking on behalf of Lisa Lcff, teacher at Mary Farmer. And so here's her letter. My apologies for not saying this myself, but I am away at science camp. I would like to address some of the statements made by Dr. Young in a letter that went out to the parents. He stated that the board is fervent in providing a fair and competitive salary and benefit compensation, but a 1% bonus doesn't help. It won't even cover my increase in medical benefits for this year. I'm not sure if the board realizes that they approved a budget in December that increased its expenditures by 16%, which is over $7.3 million from the one they approved in June. Certificated salaries being the only category that went down. I don't understand why the district would increase their expenditures by $7.3 million when we were told in September that we needed to cut the budget by $2 million. It doesn't seem like the board and district management feel teachers are a priority. Actions speak louder than words. A 1% bonus is an insult and doesn't show us we matter at all when you are increasing expenditures in every other category. Dr. Young also stated that salaries went up 17.5% over the last 5 years. My salary did, in fact, go up 17%. However, I was not at the same step on the salary schedule as I am now. I was on step 21. If you compare step 21 during the 2012-2013 year to the current step 21, there is only a 13% increase. I am now at step 24 and cannot move. So the comment that teachers can automatically move step and column is misleading. I am forever stuck. I compared my pay stub from December 2013 to my pay stub in December 2017. Yes, my salary went up 17%, but my Medicare contribution went up 47%, STRS went up 83.5%, and health insurance went up 13.5%. My salary increase did not come close to keeping up with my contribution increases. As a side note, the average house in Benicia was $455,000 in 2013. The average house in Benicia now is $631,000. That's an increase of 38.7%. I'd hate to see that go down because we can't keep qualified teachers. Dr. Young stated we have lower class sizes and competitive salaries when compared to the other districts in Solano County. We aren't competing with districts in Solano County. We are competing with Napa, Martinez, Mount Diablo, and Walnut Creek. I have a great desire to help this district with their financial situation. I have offered to help see where cuts could be made several times and have even offered a few suggestions to Dr. Young and Dr. Gill. I personally have requested information regarding the district's spending to see where changes could be made to help in the bargaining process. As a member of the bargaining team, I requested the following information in October: credit card statements for 2015, 2016, 2017. Thank you.
Could you have her send that letter to us?
Sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I was just, I put in a card to speak just because we figured we'd need time to finish. Yeah.
Carolyn Field?
Carolyn Fields, Benicia Middle School. Oh, BTA president. All right. A breakdown in furniture expenses, computer and printers at the district office, IT office, and schools for 2015, 2016, 2017. A variance analysis to explain why we were over budget in the past years. Yet I have received none of those. This district is a big part of my life. The teachers I work with are my family. I know that the board gets its information from the district office management, but no one is making them accountable for their spending. They are not giving you, the board, all the information. I would hate to see this district fail because of a few people at the top who are only passing through, making some very poor decisions. Please put your teachers who are responsible for making this district great your #1 priority. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public? On to the consent calendar. I'd like to request a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as posted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any gifts?
No gifts tonight.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the members of the Board Policy Review Committee. We meet once a month to go over board policies.
Dr. Young, that was included in the consent calendar? Sorry, so it was approved already.
So then we're gonna
Like Pavlovian, I hear the words and then I just.
Okay. So then we're going to move on to the discussion items. Dr. Young.
Okay, is this correct, Ms. Jensen? All right. That's right.
I know.
So during the course of the year, Mr. Rayhill provides us with regular budget updates, and as he did at the I think it was the last board meeting, where we had an update on the governor's proposed budget, and then recently, as it was referenced by one of our speakers, that I had written a communication to the public recently, updating them on our budget status, and then talking about the challenge of having to consider $800,000 in budget reductions going into next year. So part of the regular budget update process, we thought that it would be beneficial for Mr. Rayhill to provide a detailed budget update regarding where we are at this juncture in the year.
Good evening. So we do have our budget update for you today on this February 1st. And we did receive information from the governor's January budget proposal a few weeks ago, as we do every year. And based on that information, BUSD does need to make $800,000 in ongoing budget adjustments to provide a balanced budget and provide for the state's required minimum 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. And that's about $1.4 million. As well as the board policy reserve, which is about $2 million. So both of those reserves are enacted to help provide financial stability for the district in tough times, in tough economic times, such as continued student declining enrollment, which our district has experienced for at least 2 years in a row, for state and economic recessions. The governor in January did say how we are in one of the longest running catch-up periods, positive periods, and it's not a matter of if a recession will happen, it's a matter of when. And as well as just economic slowdown. So the reason why districts like Benicia have reserves is to help minimize those tough times. So based on the governor's January budget proposal, the governor is proposing to provide some one-time funds to all the school districts in California. I just want to note that this is the governor's proposal. the governor makes a proposal for a budget every January, which kicks off a 6-month budget cycle at the state. It also kicks off our budget process here in the school districts. So that would bring about an estimated $1.3 million to Benicia School District in one-time funds. So our district is planning to spend these funds on one-time items like books, technology, 21st century classrooms, and professional development, which includes our instructional coaching model. So Benicia Unified School District, we're not proposing to spend these one-time funds on any ongoing items. And such ongoing items, those would be items that have a cost to our district year after year, and it would take some sort of action to stop those ongoing expenses from continuing.
Mr. Rahil, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can I ask a question about the reserve specifically? So I'm curious about a couple things. One is how, what kind of buffer do the reserves give us essentially in terms of how much would they cover us in terms of payroll, in terms of keeping us our lights on, keeping us solvent essentially?
Yeah, we're about a $45 million budget in our school district. And so those two added together, it's about $3.5 million. And so that is the equivalent of about 1 month's payroll. In school districts and the way that the financing works, unless there's a really drastic Great Recession where in those drastic years, the state actually took money away from schools during mid-year. That happened one time. So we don't expect that to happen. Like I said, the governor's January proposal kicks off a 6-month process for next year's budget. And so there would be time to plan for such financial reductions in a school district, and a reserve that would just buy you additional time. So $3.5 million would be factored into whatever the situation would be for the district, and so each event would be different. But it is the equivalent of 1 month's payroll for our district, and that was kind of a guiding light for the district when they set it up.
Can I ask one more clarifying question, Mr. Rahil? We have been declining, but you said, if I understood correctly, like when we were declining, like last year, we didn't lose the money last year, but they gave us a grace period. Is that right? Can you explain?
Yeah, the way the state funding worked, there's 1 year of hold harmless. So to the extent, for example, this year we're down 100 students. The state allows you to claim at least a minimum of last year's ADA or student attendance. So, but if you don't get those kids back in the following year, then that reduction in funds would hit you in that following year.
So if we're down 100 students, what does that equal dollar-wise?
Down 100 student is about $800,000, a little bit more than $800,000 that we will not get for those 100 students that aren't enrolled in our schools anymore.
So ADA times minus students,
yes,
then is our formula. And it gets us to.
And that's ongoing money. So I got a question. When I got on the board, when I started on the board 6 years ago, I think we had somewhere around $8 million in our reserves, and we dipped into that several times because we were deficit spending. But we chose as a board not to do layoffs, but to take money out of the reserves to continue keeping programs and keeping, bring back programs and staff from what it was before I got on the board, when you guys had to do the big cuts and everything. So, I'm just kind of baffled there. But the other thing is these funds that the governor has proposed to give us, that is strictly one time. It's not ongoing. It's just to be used for the different programs. And so are we ever going to be able to build our reserves back up when we fall back in where we were when I got on the board, that we're not laying people off because we have money in the reserves to keep people here?
Really good point. As the district has spent down its reserves, this first conversation that we're having about the governor's proposal to provide one-time funds, and we listed a bunch of different one-time items like books and technology and other items. Another option for the school board could be to consider that and use that to provide for the reserve. If there was an interest to increase the reserve level, you could use those one-time funds. The reserves are one-time in nature. It's like a savings account. You can think of it that way. We have set aside these funds for tough times, and to the extent you use them for something, you have to put it back in order to replenish it. So another use of the one-time funds could be for establishing a reserve level.
Another question you brought up, this is the governor, based off the governor's January proposal. How do you feel, or how does school services feel? Is that pretty much going to come to light? Or, I mean, we're making decisions off of what his proposal is. Is that something that are we pretty guaranteed that, or what will affect his proposal?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think this year there's a little bit more likelihood that the governor's proposal will end up be really close to what the state adopts in a budget. The governor, like he does every year, comes back with a May revise in May that updates his January proposal, and at this point, the leading school financial consultant in California is saying that the May revise will be really close to the January budget proposal. It's not a guarantee, but it's a little bit more likely than in other years. This is Governor Brown's last budget before he exits office, and so there is a lot of desire for Governor Brown to come through with this January proposed budget. So the other thing that the governor is proposing is to fully fund California schools under the state's funding formula for schools, the local control funding formula, abbreviated as Lcff. Originally not scheduled to be fully funded for a couple years out, the governor, and because the state continues to do good in the economy, was able to propose a budget to fully fund schools a couple years early. And so providing additional ongoing Lcff funds to school districts. Earlier in the year, before the governor's January proposal, the district communicated its need to consider budget adjustments of $2 million. But that was before the governor's January proposal, which provided more funds to the school and lowered that to what we're currently looking at for a budget adjustments of $800,000. So we're reminded that that state funding of the Lcff, it includes a base grant for all students and a supplemental piece for students who are in one of three groups, those who are enrolled in the free and reduced lunch program, those who are an English learner, or those who are foster youth or homeless. So they provide a supplemental grant for that. And we do need to communicate how we're using those funds to serve our students in one of those three populations. Our student population in those three groups, it has been around 22%, but it is getting closer to 25% now. Most of that being in the free and reduced lunch program. We serve about 2% English learners, and we do have a small percentage of our students who are foster youth and homeless. But the majority of that is those enrolled in the free and reduced lunch program. So we'll be coming back and communicating with you, letting you know how we're serving our students in those categories with our supplemental funds, which is something that we're required to do. And that number, I don't know if I just mentioned it, it's about $1.6 million for 2018-19. We're also reminded when Governor Brown led the effort to create this LCFF funding for schools, it was also required for every school district in California to prepare a plan, our local control accountability plan, the LCAP, and that talks about what we do in our district and how we spend our funds. And the woman sitting to my left, Dr. Beetson, leads that great effort in our district, and she is in the process of doing so as we speak. Community input, school input, and that process is also a 6-month process, and that kind of coincides with the budget process as well.
Mr. Rahil, the part where you lost me on one thing was that you talked about one-time funds being one-time use only. But then I thought I also heard you say the instructional coaches were a possible one-time use. And since those are positions, how are we paying for those out of one-time funds?
Yeah, really good point. We are considering those one-time on a year-to-year basis. We have the ability to analyze that each year and make the decisions timely enough so that if those instructional coaches need to go back into the classroom, then there's a spot for them so that we don't have to do layoffs. As an example, there is, and it's not necessarily an instructional coach in this sense. We have one section at Benicia High School this year for the next generation science standards, and that teacher was all about getting on top of those standards. And but we only needed that for this year, and so that was funded out of one time for this year. But next year, that teacher's going back in the classroom, so we plan to do that and get that teacher back into the classroom. So those are things that we're not locked into, and it requires just early notification to make that change.
And so those teachers have reversion rights to the classroom.
Yes.
Okay, so we wouldn't lose them year to year. Thank you.
So as proposed, the Lcff, it would provide an estimated additional about $1.5 million to Benicia School District. And there's certain things that come off the top from that Lcff amount. The district is faced and does have to pay for automatic increased salary costs, and those are on our salary schedules. Every school district in California has a salary schedule, and there's different levels. So as employees stay in the district and have longevity, have years in the district, or if they increase their education and get education credits, they can move up on the salary schedule. So we have automatic salary increases on our salary schedule. It's referred to step and column. And then we also, over the last several years, have experienced increased contributions into our employee pension plans. So as those pension plans at the state level have struggled to earn appropriate investments to make the pension payments, they have turned to the employers, like school districts, as well as the employees, to contribute more into those pension plans. And so those costs have really skyrocketed and are scheduled to continue to increase over the next several years. So between the two of those automatic salary increases due to step and column and our increased contributions into our employee pension plans, it's about $1.1 million. We have a few additional needs in special ed and restricted facility maintenance, a couple other programs. It's about another $100,000. And then the last big piece that we're faced with is currently operating at a deficit of $1.1 million. And so that operating deficit that we have right now, that continues unless we do something about it, unless we make budget adjustments or get additional revenues. And so by operating at a deficit this year, we look to the following year to see what revenues can come in and make that better. But we can't put a blinder on to the new costs that we'll have, which are the step and column, STIRS and PERS, and those other few programs. So looking at that, we're left with an $800,000 shortfall. So that brings us to our the beginning of our budget cycle. We're just 1 month into it for this year. We just got the governor's January proposal, and we've talked about declining enrollment, which if we don't have the kids, we don't get the money for them. We do get a hold harmless for 1 year, but it's catching up with us because we've had a couple years of about 100 kids less each year. So when you have less kids, that means we will need potentially less staffing to educate and serve those students. And so we have worked very closely with all of our principals and all of our administrators to look at how our kids roll into next year and where we have some room to adjust our staff. And I'm using the word adjust. I'm not using the word cut. It is a reduction, so you can call it whatever you like, but it really is more along the lines of adjusting our staff downward to more closely reflect the number of students we have. And we do have our contract language, which tells us how many kids are in a classroom. And so with less kids, we can serve them with some less staffing. And after meeting, and it doesn't come in nice, clean packages, so it's not like at elementary school with 24 students, we get a little bit at every school. So, but over time, this year, we're able to adjust by 4 secondary teachers, most of that at the Benicia High School, but about 2.5 special ed teachers and about 3 special ed classified staff. Again, adjusting down to match the number of students we have.
I appreciate your adjusting language, but are we doing layoffs?
At this point in time, based on folks that are retiring and leaving for other reasons through attrition, we expect that all of these reductions are going to be handled through attrition. So no layoffs. We will have, our official notification needs to be made by March 15th, but at this point in time, we are not anticipating that.
What's the impact of this going to be? Can you clarify that for me?
Mm-hmm. Let me, So the impact of that, can I just finish the other few adjustments and come back to that question? Okay, I won't. Okay, in addition to that staff, there is one additional temporary teacher that we have on the payroll this year, who is covering for a teacher on extended leave. That teacher, we don't need that coverage for next year. So that would be a savings of a teacher's salary. That, all of those savings amount to about $700,000. The remaining $100,000 would be achieved through shifting some of the more administrative duties from the psych and counseling area over to existing site administration and district administration. So carving out that administrative function over there. And through that, we would be able to save the equivalent of one position between psych and counseling. And so that would add up to the $800,000 in adjustments, really basically based upon the student enrollment being less in our school district. So like I said, we expect everything to be covered through attrition, no layoffs, but we'll officially bring that back to you probably on March 1st at the meeting. So getting back to Diane's question, I think what you're asking for is what are some of the things that would happen. We, again, work closely with the principals about how the staffing that they have and how the kids are assigned into the classrooms. So there's definitely many classes that are quite below the contract language of 31 students in the classroom. So we're working with the principals to identify, combine kids into the sections and staff them closer to the contract language. So there will be some classes that have a few more kids in them, and that's just kind of the nature of staffing closer to our contract level, which currently is 24-to-1 in TK to 3. If there are some additional kids, there's the option to go to class size relief by 2 in each one of those classes. At 4-5, it is 30, also with the option to go into 2 with class size relief. At the middle and high school, at the secondary level, there's student contacts of 155 generally per day. And if you divide that by the 5 sections that a teacher teaches, it's 31 students per section. There are some unique things for PE and some of the other classes, but that's the general staffing.
You want to follow up on that? No, go ahead. I'm curious about what the special ed cuts potentially could look like in terms of what grade level and what, I don't know if Dr. Patton wants to address that issue, but.
Good evening. So yes, for special ed, there is also contract language around both class sizes and what we call caseload, because there's 2 components to working with our students with disabilities, case managing, and then also some of the teaching and so forth. So each year I've been monitoring, and we've gotten to the point where at different grade levels, we have been overstaffed where the teachers have had significantly low caseloads. For a resource teacher, their caseloads can be up to 28, and some of them have been in the teens for quite a while. And we have the trend data to show us that particularly at the middle school, we've been overstaffed by 1 resource teacher, and then also some of our inclusion at the elementary. And then finally at preschool. Preschool's a little bit more difficult to track, and so we've been really monitoring, and we've had 1 preschool teacher historically, and we added a 50% preschool teacher. So just kind of going into some of that and looking at where do we need where do we need the staff. We do get a projection list for kids that we know of that are turning 3, and we can work with that. But we will still have plenty of room on caseloads, and we will still be able to obviously cover all of the minutes and the services that our kids with disabilities require, both by their IEP and what they need to be successful in their classes and to move forward.
Dr. Patton, you just mentioned a comment, and I guess it's going to be for Mr. Raheel and you, but we will still have room for like new children coming in. There'll still be space. We're not going to be, okay. Right. Just want to make sure that we're not.
Yeah, and just like Mr. Raheel was talking about, that there's room for class size relief. We also have in our contract language that if need be, we can do some quick caseload relief where we can go 1 or 2 over a caseload. We haven't had to do that a lot. We've had a little bit with speech due to a speech path going out on parenting leave, and so some temporary vacancies. But with our special ed staff, we generally stay under caseload. Once in a while, we'll go 1 or 2 over temporarily. But we still have plenty of room on most of our teachers' caseloads to have room for move-ins or newly identified students.
Dr. Patton, you mentioned the middle school a couple of times. Like, what are our numbers there?
So currently, we have 4 resource teachers at the middle school, and we have approximately 61 is the projected for next year. I think we have 63 middle school students that are considered resource kids. And then we have our Pearl class, which is students primarily with emotional disabilities. We currently have 11 students in that program with a caseload limit of 14. And then we have our what we call our functional academic class, and I don't know the exact numbers on that, but that's got a class size limit of 16, and we're well under that. That's maybe in the 10 to 12 range right now. So again, and then I always look at the 5th graders moving up to the middle school, and then also the 8th graders that will be moving up to the high school. So those are our known kids, and again, we have kids that may or may move in or move out of our district. We have the advantage of having low mobility rates, just overall, both for special ed and general ed, so we don't have huge, kind of fluctuations in our numbers from year to year.
So you said the caseload limit for special ed is 21?
28 for resource. It's different depending, so there's caseload limits for inclusion, there's caseload limits for resource, there's caseload limits for SDC. And those are all in our contract.
And we have about a 15 to 1 now.
We have about 15 to 1 right now. They split them up by grade level. So if there's more 6th graders, that case manager may have a few more than the 8th grade, but generally they're in that mid-teen to definitely below 20 range. And they should run at about 21 to 23 next year.
So, no problem. Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. And so, yeah, that identifies, again, it is a reduction. They're really more along a line of adjustments versus cuts, adjusting to our declining enrollment. I do want to take the time, since BEF is with us tonight, to really thank them for their contributions for our elementary wheel program and for our secondary college and career programs, which are extremely helpful in our tough times. Right now, the district does try to get other operational funding sources through the state. It's quite limited because they did roll everything into the LCFF. But Principal Kleinschmidt did a wonderful job working with all of her team and us to get some short-term career tech ed funds for what she's developing with industrial arts and the medical careers. That funding doesn't go on forever. I think we're going to get a little bit next year, but it's kind of a foot in the door to help get those programs jump-started. And so we try to get other funding outside of the LCFF, and we really appreciate what BEF can do for us locally. The last kind of roundup with the financial projections and information that we have tonight, we do want to say that, you know, negotiations with our employee unions have not been settled for this current year, 2017-18, or the following 2018-19 year. We did settle for 16-17. So these financial projections don't include any potential costs that would be associated with settled negotiations for either of those years. Negotiations are currently underway with BTA, our teachers group, and they are starting soon with our classified union, CSEA.
Ron, thank you. Before we go off into negotiations kind of discussions, the teachers raised in the letter tonight the step and column process. And we've heard now a number of times that the step and column is not considered a raise. That is an automatic based on their years of service. Well, the question I have is, I've heard the reference to I've topped out. And I know our step and columns has, what, 24 steps, right? Does that ever change?
It is, our teacher's salary schedule is set, and it continues year after year, unless through negotiations both parties agree to change it. So right now, it doesn't change unless unless that's through negotiation process. We can bring back some information. We just did some comparables with our salary schedules, and Benicia does have, for its teachers, it has 24 steps. It has, I believe, 5 or more columns, 5 main columns for educational movement, and then 24 steps. You don't move a step every single year. Sometimes you have to wait a couple years or several years before you move to the next step based on how many years you're with the district. If I remember correctly, the comparable group we used, and with some districts a few districts have less than 24, and we can bring back the numbers, but most had more than 24 steps. So in other districts, it would take longer to get to that top step. But those are things that are set in our contract.
So they're set through negotiation.
Yes.
Has it ever been, has it been different in this district? Have you seen it change?
I think in some recent negotiations, I think there was some application we'll have to come back and tell you. I don't know if the number of steps have changed, but there was some change about when you moved as you had years in the district. So I think
I believe 4 or 5 years ago, and correct me as a long-term teacher here, they only had 20 steps, and we added 4 more steps because teachers were saying they were at their max.
We'll come back. We'll let you know, but there's been some movement.
What is that? Anybody remember that of our teachers? I know that was early beginning of me being on the board that we added. I believe it's 4 more steps because people were. Yeah. I do have a question. ADA. What are we getting right now per student? Roughly
about $8,200.
$8,200, and you said that we're declining enrollment. You said 100 students. Is that 100 over, or is that 100 a year, or is that 100 over 3 or 4 years?
It's been a decline of about 100 students a year for 2 years. So at this point, about roughly 200 students cumulatively. So in 1 year we lost 100, and then the following year it went down another 100.
So that's $1.6 million in 2 years that we don't have.
Right. If those students were around, we would have had those funds come to our district.
Okay.
So this is our first dip with the 100 students?
We didn't take the penalty for the first one.
Okay, so next year we take the penalty for 200 students now?
Right, yeah. So we've had 2 consecutive years of declining enrollment, about 100 each year. And so this year we've made the adjustment, and then next year, since we have the hold harmless, we will be facing that next year. Yeah. So, and those are in these numbers. Those are projected that we know. If we have another decline, let's in September that we have another decline compared to this year, again, it's a hold harmless. So we don't have that built into our multi-year projections now. But come September, August, when all the students show up, we'll know if we finally stabilized. So what we're hopeful is that come August, that the same number of kids show up that first day of school that we had this year. And then we can kind of see a new trend starting back to stabilizing. Maybe we'll have more, but we're just hoping for stable at this moment.
Okay, so I have a question. We did a projection last year of enrollment. So where are we on that spectrum?
In our report that we hired the demographer to do, it was pretty flat. There was a little bit of increase, maybe in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 students. And when you're talking about 4,700 students, a change of 30 it really is almost like zero. So there's so many factors depending on who stays and who goes and who moves into the district and who leaves, that it's a very stable increase. It's a very small stable increase in the outer years. And so we're being conservative. We're not banking on those students because we are just coming off of a declining enrollment. We're just hoping for stable, and we can adjust that come August.
If I recall that report correctly, though, it didn't project that we'd be 100 down again this year.
No, it wasn't projecting.
It wasn't in those projections.
Just a little tiny bit, a few increases. Yes.
Don't necessarily hang a whole lot on that one.
And that's why Benicia was experiencing pretty much flat, stable enrollment prior to these 2 years of declining enrollment. So the first year, we looked at it closer, and then when the second year actually happened, we wanted to take a pause and have somebody else look at it to see if we were missing something. And we really weren't. And so again, as time goes on, we're hoping for that stability.
Yeah, I just always wonder about what we can do effort-wise on our part to get more students in. I mean, the inter-district transfer obviously issue comes up. But other than that, I know we're pretty limited in our abilities.
Housing market issue. Yes, I know. Yeah.
Or make houses cheaper.
No, I'm sorry. We don't have public comment right now. So there was one more question that went through my mind, and it just left, so I'll get back to that.
So I'll just, before I wrap up, just a closing comment, and this might have been what you were thinking of. And so basically, based on what we know now, the governor's proposal and the $800,000 in adjustment, that really puts us at break even, okay? And one of the things we just talked about is negotiations haven't settled. If there's costs associated with those negotiations and they're ongoing in nature. And for that matter, if we have any additional ongoing costs that come up, whether it be utilities or something like that, we are converting to solar, so we're not expecting that to happen. But in the transition, there might be any type of additional ongoing expenditure. We'll bring that back through the budget process and talk about other types of adjustments, or it might be cuts at that point in order to cover additional costs associated with whether that be through negotiations or anything outside of negotiations.
So will we have time to do that between the May revise and a June vote? Because while we feel fairly confident at the K-12 level that the January proposal is what's going through, at my higher ed level, they're not confident at all that the January proposal is what will go through. And so it makes me, of course, they're really upset that K-12 got so much money. So, so it could all be a perspective issue. But I'm having a different conversation at the higher ed level. And it just makes me wonder, how much flexibility do we have from May to June if we have to give notice in March?
It's a really good point. Yeah, we are using the governor's January proposal. As I mentioned earlier, the indications from School Services of California, the leading analyst and consultant for schools finance in California, is saying it's going to be pretty close for California school districts, TK to 12. Community colleges and higher ed, I'm not sure if they're as certain as we're hearing, which apparently not.
No, they're not. They're not at all, actually. So that's why I'm like, I'm trying to. I mean, I know School Services is getting there. It just makes me think about, we're cutting it even at 800,000. We're just getting to zero, right? Mm-hmm. So any of these other variables, if the January revise doesn't come through as we expect, if negotiations cost us more than we expect, if the medical expenses go up, mm-hmm. we're back in the hole again.
Yeah, maybe maybe we can continue the conversation at the next board meeting or through other board updates about where we are as we put together that, like I mentioned earlier, the attrition list that we'll be identifying everyone that will be not here in the district for next year through retirement or leaving for other reasons, and that might give us additional room so that we don't have to hire or fill those positions immediately. Maybe that provides us some additional time before we fill those positions.
I think it might behoove us to have a plan so that we are prepared in light of the fact that
any of the variables.
Governor Brown decides to switch the money over to higher ed and take it away from K-12, because I guess
we're doing a lot of lobbying.
You're doing a lot of lobbying. So with that said, to my fellow board members,
it's a different day. We lobbied March 20th for that one and March 13th for this one.
So we are lobbying on March 13th, TK-12 unified school districts. Actually, that's what the legislative action day is, because the push is really to raise the base funding for the schools, because you saw the notice I put out to you from over hundreds of school districts in the state of California. We are one of the lowest funded. And part of the issue is because we don't have a large population for the supplemental. So the idea is just to bring the low districts up to the base average, which would be something like, I don't want you to write this down, but it was somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800 more per student.
That would bring us to around 10,000.
Right. So even that alone would be a significant dollar increase to the district. So That's part of why we're lobbying. Not that we will talk down the high school, the colleges, but we really need to look at that and find some way to get that fair funding to actually happen for the K-12 the unified districts. Anyway, so
Could you be sure to send that out to us?
I will send it out to you. Yes.
And I guess I would also like to say that it behooves all of us or anyone who's interested in the quality of education that we have in the state and for our district, specifically our community, that, you know, we all have the opportunity to be active around the legislative process. And I mean, I want to do that as a school board member, but I also just, I mean, I just think as participants in our community and our democracy we all have the ability to do that. And I just want to put a shout out to anybody who has that kind of energy or drive or interest to participate in this process, because I think that, you know, our hands are so tied in so many ways in terms of the finances that we have. I mean, across the state, but, you know, in our district is particularly poor district. And I mean, we're going to fight over the scraps, I think. But the reality is that there is more money out there, and there's more money that could be coming into education. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, and you don't have to go trucking up to Sacramento if you don't want to. Anybody can get online and send letters. I mean, that's really...
Yeah, there's ways to do something in your home where you don't even have to go out and do that. Exactly. Very good point. There's very simple, and, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, not to keep going on and on, but there's a lot, technology has really enabled, I mean, in terms of my work in political advocacy, it's so much easier now. There's apps that like dial the numbers for you. There's ways to reach out to your local legislators, you know, on a local, you know, city-wise and even in a state, in terms of the state process, I think that we have a lot more power as individuals to make an impact. And people in our, you know, who are advocating for things like this, we tend to be less vocal. I mean, if you look at statistics on who calls their legislators, like people are, anyway, so I just want to put a shout out.
Commute to work on the morning.
Yeah.
Have them in my phone.
And that's really like, until we address that, we're not going to have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd just like to sum up the conversation we've had. So again, based on the governor's January budget proposal, we're using his proposal and providing for these $800,000 in budget adjustments, adjusting our staffing to reflect our declining student enrollment. We will have basically a break-even budget at that point in time, and also be able to provide for the state's minimum 3% reserve and our local board policy reserve. Some next steps is we're starting to work on our second interim financial report, and we'll bring that back to you at the March school board meeting. So we have February to prepare that. So you'll hear these numbers again. You'll see these numbers again. We can update it for anything that comes in between now and then. Continue to update you with anything we hear from the state of California prior to the May revise, when the governor comes out with his May revised budget. And then we turn that around into a final budget for the school board to take a look at and approve in June.
Thank you for letting us pepper you with questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rahill. All right, at this time, I know there was someone who wanted to make a comment. Is there anybody out in the public that would like to make a comment on this topic? I think we lulled her to sleep.
You guys were talking about decline in students. I know some friends or acquaintances, about 12 of them left the school district because of the shots. Is it the DTaP, or that needed to be in 6th grade or 7th grade? They let some of them did not want their kids take that shot, and I know there's like 10 that I was just counting when you guys were talking why they didn't.
I don't think that's specific to our district, though. I think that's state legislation.
It's
state law, yeah.
That's one of them, and I just counted 10 in my hands. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But I just, you know, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where's the decline? 100 kids. Because I've been here 6 years, like 200 kids. Where did they go? You know, besides homeschool. So, but that's, I mean, I just thought about that on some of my kids. I mean, my kids were preemies, micro preemies, so they have to have those shots. And like you said, it's the law. So, but that's I know my one neighbor told me that they didn't want their kids to have that shot. Just too over. I was just having that conversation because I asked her how come I don't see it at the middle school. So that was their choice. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have a public comment? And I just want to remind everybody that this is an opportunity to make a statement to the board, but we cannot engage in the comment, okay? Thank you.
Mine's Carolyn Fields, Benicia Middle School BTA president. Mine's more of a clarifying question. I was looking at Mr. Rahill's, the text that you provided us, and I'm wondering the $1.1 million for increased ongoing employee salary costs for step and column, does that assume that every single employee steps up? Because I don't think that that happens, and that I'm not sure how that number works, and would like to know more. Just because I know personally I need to move over, and I haven't in many, many years. So it's been a great discount to the district. I haven't done that. So.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Rahill, can you clarify again how the step and column works for us?
Yeah. In school districts, there's generally a historical step and column, and that gets trued up when we actually get our staff in place in September. And so Benicia's step and column has been actually increasing a little bit, and it is over $450,000 right now. It does not assume every person steps or moves a column. So we use our historical numbers, and then we true that up after we get the actual employees in place. But on average, it's between $400,000 and $500,000, and it's getting closer to the $500,000 based on the people that we have. That's for all employees in the districts, certificated employees, and classified employees.
Okay, so when you were saying almost all, there are some places where people let plateau for a couple of years, or 1 year, 2 years. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it in a while. But there's a couple of years where you plateau before you would move on to the next step. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Well, I got a question on that. So Carolyn mentioned, Ms. Fields mentioned 1.1 million. So step and column itself is, you're saying, closer to 500,000?
Yeah, it's not quite $500,000. It's between $400,000 and $500,000. So it's about $450,000.
And that's the average every year that's ongoing at where we're at right now. And then what's the other difference between that and the 1.1?
The STRS and PERS increase that we're faced to pay to both of those retirement.
Okay. And how much has that increased over the years?
Right now, that is increasing at a rate of about $600,000 per year.
Additional $600,000.
Additional $600,000. So this year, we had to pay the employee pension plans. We had to send $600,000 more to the state pension plans than we did last year. Next year, we will have to send on top of that, another $600,000. I'm using round numbers to the pension plans on top of the $600,000 this year. So basically, there is a steady rate increase to our pension plans, employee pension plans, over the next several years.
So next year it's 1.2 million more?
It's in the neighborhood of 1.1 million. I can come back, and in the second interim report, we can break that out for you.
So the percentage increasing every year, is that what you're trying?
Yes.
So just to clarify, I'm sorry, I'm confused. So the 1.1 million is a combination of STRS and PERS in addition to the step and column. So, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, every year you can think of it is that we have over $1 million that we need to come up with to cover our step and column and STRS and PERS.
And sorry, I don't know everything on the governor's proposal, but is there a proposal to increase ADA for our students?
Right now, so really, really good question. So with Governor Brown exiting office this year and him proposing his final budget, which is what this is, he is proposing to fully fund under the Lcff a couple years early, like I mentioned earlier. once LCFF is fully funded, what happens is school districts go back to the cost of living allowance days. And so right now, most school districts, if not all school districts, have benefited from the LCFF formula because of the way it gets funded above some of the cost of living allowances, which gets used for step and column and stirs and purrs and all the other costs of the district. But in these COLA years, so in 18-19, if that truly is the last LCFF year of targeted, and then in 19-20 it reverts to cost of living allowance or COLA, then the funding, the increase in funding isn't as much as we're getting for 18-19, and then it's going to make our ability to meet our obligations even tougher. And so in the second interim report, we'll provide you some multi-year projections that shows it being a little bit more difficult in those outer years. Now, the one thing that we would have for us in that outer year, just jumping ahead to 19-20, is, again, we really are hoping that our declining enrollment stabilizes and that we don't continue to take these hits. So if it truly does stabilize in that 19-20 year, we won't be taking a hit on the ADA side. So that $800,000 that we're taking a hit on, we're not projecting to have that in 19-20. Time will tell, but that would help us in those when the LCFF converts to the COLA. Now, at the same time, the legislature and the new governor will be talking about school funding, and they do have the opportunity to do something with the LCFF and create a new target. Or as President Ferrucci said, the school community can ask for more of a base grant instead of just capping out at the targeted level that we have right now. And you'll find, and we can bring back information, most of the school organizations are starting to communicate their desire to have the state fund more of the base grant because the supplemental grant just goes to those districts that have students in those populations, and some districts have a lot higher student population in those categories.
Which is why some districts are getting so much more money than we are. So the other question I have about the funding, and it's on the same line as Mr. Wing, has there been a conversation when you've gone to these meetings about helping to offset the impact of the increased stirs and purrs for the districts? I mean, we're doing this, we're covering this, but we didn't create this problem, I guess, is what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, are they willing to help us to make up the difference? Because it's important to do. Are we going to get any extra funds?
Great questions tonight. Quick answer is no. We haven't heard of any language or proposals specifically to provide funding for the employee pension costs. It would be assumed that that would be addressed through the LCFF funds.
Does he have any good news for us?
Good evening, Christine Mitchell, Benicia Middle School. So just listening to, we're all wanting very similar things from two very different sides. So I'm just wondering, as we're talking about adjustments and reductions, I've heard what the reductions look like in the schools and at the classroom. I would be interested to hear about any adjustments or reductions that are happening possibly at the district level, just because I feel like it always is from one side. My other question is, with the reserve, is that in some sort of savings account? Is that in some sort of funding situation that it is making money while it sits there? So if we've used from 8 million down to 3 million over the last 5 years, why isn't it growing where it's sitting? And can that be put in a place where this $600,000 that we suddenly have to come up with is being taken care of because of how we're putting it in a safer place? Just a couple of questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Rahal, thank you very much. I would like a better picture than the one you're painting.
Do we have brought up at least next meeting or something about where is our reserve sitting in our?
I think that's a great question, actually.
Just real quick, all of our funds are required to be with the Solano County Treasurer's Office. So we don't have and our funds are, kept separate by fund. So the general fund would have the reserve. We have a totally separate school facility bond fund that does track those monies separately. So as the reserve is there, it does earn interest. Those interest earnings go into our general fund and can be used for operational expenses. So the principle of the reserve stays intact. The interest goes into the operating budget and can be used for that.
And that's a requirement to have it there.
Yes.
Do we know what the interest rate is?
It's getting a little bit better. I believe it's close to 1%, which is not the best, but it's better than less than 1.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. I assume there's no more questions from the audience, so I'm going to move on to the next item, which is a non-consent action item. Dr. Young, you want to? I will get this mic down, okay? It's on the wrong side. I'm used to it here. The school board is asking for each school district to pass this resolution, and the resolution is calling for full and fair funding of California school boards. And if we pass this resolution and we sign it, it'll then go to the legislature for the state of California. So what the rationale behind it is that California is actually the 6th largest economy in the world and has the largest gross domestic product of any state, yet it ranks in the bottom of nearly every measure of school funding and school staffing. California's inadequate school funding hurts our students, it undermines our community, it threatens our prosperity, and dims the prospects of future generations. If we want to prepare our students for an increasing competitive, technology-driven global economy, we must invest at a level necessary to support student success. With an additional $1,961 per student, a 500-student school would get an additional $9,500 in revenue. If the state-funded schools at just the national average, that would increase funding by $1,961 per student. For a classroom of 25 students, that's an additional $35,000 for student support services, which could be counselors, social workers, or wellness centers, parent and community engagement, support for English learners, intervention programs, instructional support staff, class size reduction, career tech ed, and expended offerings in the arts and other extracurricular activities. District and county offices of education are doing much more with less, but it's still not good enough. If California is serious about providing all of its students with a high-quality education, we need to get serious about a full and fair funding for public schools. California School Board Association is asking district school boards to support this resolution and asking for a fair and full funding for districts in the state of California. I need a motion. Any questions from the board?
No.
No? Do I have any questions from the audience? No comments? Okay. Then I guess I can call. Yes. I make a motion for resolution number 17-1810.
Are you making the motion or?
No, I'm not. I'm asking.
I made the motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Okay, so we had a motion from Stacy, and who seconded it? Gary. Okay. So, President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin? Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will have to all sign that resolution as well. Okay. All right, with that, this is it. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for coming.